Roll call, William Johnson.
Here.
Thomas Graffinino.
Here.
Lynn Colligan.
Here.
Lisa Kreckler.
Here.
And Phil Diorio is here. We have Stephen Kiley, Town Attorney, present via Zoom. First order of business tonight is to review and approve the October 23rd, 2024 minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, just to explain to everybody out there in Zoom land, we had during hearings in September or October, things that were going to be adjourned until the November 20th, 2024 hearing. And there was some confusion because we moved the dates back because of Thanksgiving. And so it was stated that we were moving these, we were going to continue these hearings on November 13th, but that is not true. So we are going to make a motion to adjourn the following applications until November 20th, 2024. The first one is 73 Shore Road and 63 Stearns Point Road. That's a Perlman application. The second is 80 North Ferry Road. That's Sylvester Manor. And the third is 3 Locust Avenue, that's Cummings. May I have a motion to adjourn the following those applications to November 20th, 2024?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we have 2 applications to discuss tonight. The first is 60 Smith Street.
I'm going to recuse myself because the applicant is my employer.
Thank you.
Ask a question now. I know you're in the middle of your meeting. The question is, can I ask a question later?
No.
When you get to our property?
No.
So it's a public hearing and I can't,
It's a work session. It's not a hearing. You had your hearing has come, your hearing is gone. And now it's just,
public meeting?
yes,
It's a public meeting, but I can't make a statement when you come up to our property
that's correct.
or ask a question?
I,
Okay, it's no big
We
deal.
can
I mean,
ask, we
you're
can
telling me
ask
that I
Stephen,
can't.
but we're just following rules. We're not,
No. He cannot speak at this work session. The public hearing is closed. The
Yeah,
town,
the
the
hearing's
zoning
closed.
board,
I got
yeah,
you.
the zoning
Okay,
board
I
cannot
just wanted
take
to
into
know if I
account.
could- I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to know if I could ask a question.
okay, so the first application we're going to discuss tonight is 60 Smith Street. Most people know this is the old Ryan Farm. They're looking to put an 8-foot fence around the property. I had suggested a double 4-foot fence and perhaps a couple other alternatives. They came back with what I think is pretty compelling information supporting the need for an 8-foot fence. The scale of the farming operation seemed to get bigger to make it fit the whole property and require the need to fence the whole property, as opposed to before it seemed like maybe we could go with something that would be smaller.
I think we haven't had a project like this, and so we were doing our due diligence and
Right.
asking for alternatives,
That's
but
right.
I agree that,
There's a couple things that I would like to make sure of. And going forward, if this variance is granted. And I guess the first would be that the property is farmed. I'd really like to see that, if there is no farming, then the fence should be made complying. And then the second is that the fence that is built and maintained is the fence that is on the plans. And that is something that is easily seen through, something that preserves the viewscape, especially on Smith Street. And so I would like to see that there's no solid fencing that, an 8-foot stockade fence appearing in a year or 2 or 3. I also would like to see, I would like to not see a vegetative fence that was any higher than the 6-foot that is allowed by the code in terms of a fence. I think that, this giving them the 8-foot fence makes sense. Preserving the viewscapes for Shelter Island, I think also makes sense.
It being a historical farm, yeah.
I don't know if you guys have some input on this one here.
I agree with the fact that there should be farming. Would we have a date by which there would need to be either livestock or the orchard or the vegetable farming that they were going to do?
You know, I would say that it's not just that I want to see farming next year or the year after.
Yeah.
I'd like to see farming
in perpetuity?
going forward. I mean, as long as, you know, for as long as there's going to be an 8-foot fence there, I'd like to see farming.
So that would be just ruling out that being put there just as a security, just as a fence to
Right,
keep people out of that area.
right, and the deer.
And the deer.
I mean, it's, you know, they have status with the state and the county. And the, you know, the covenants and restrictions on that property seem to only allow farming. But whatever, sometimes things change, and I'd like to make sure that if something changes, that the fence becomes compliant then with the town code.
That sounds reasonable and thoughtful, I think.
Can we just ask Stephen if those things seem sensible?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
I think, yes. Okay, are you having trouble hearing me?
No, we got you now.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good condition to put in there, that the property be actively farmed. And then we'll put in, like, if the farm goes fallow for a year period or something, then the variance shall extinguish. So we could do something like that.
Okay, and Stephen, what about the restriction on where the fence has to be, that fence that's shown in the diagrams where it's you know, it's sort, I'll call it a see-through fence, as opposed to something, you know, being replaced by a stockade fence down the road?
Yeah, what we're gonna approve is the plans as submitted. So
Okay.
that's what would be allowed.
Okay, and then what about restrictions on a vegetative screening that is any higher than the 6 feet that's allowed by, you know, for the fence by code?
So just so I'm clear, you don't want them to have vegetative screening higher than the fence?
I don't want to have it higher than 6 feet, really. What's, you know, what's actually allowed by the code. Again, just to preserve, you know, there was a gentleman here who made a statement about, you know, you know, why are you worried about fences? Because there's all these tall hedges blocking all the views. And I think that was a completely, you know, legitimate point and something, you know, that's worth thinking about. And in this case, I think it is important to preserve the viewscapes.
All right, so then, but 6 feet would obscure the viewscape, so would we want lower than that?
Because of the way Smith Street is like a little bit elevated, I feel like, I still think you could still see that, the sweeping view of what was the farm or will be a farm. Maybe I'm
Even if it was
mistaken.
6 feet?
What's that?
Even if the hedge was 6 feet?
I think so.
I think so. If it's adjacent to the fence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if the board wants to maintain the view shed, you may want to not allow any vegetation like that.
Vegetative screening.
Correct.
Okay, then maybe that's what we should say, is that none.
I mean, they're talking about they said that they had planted wildflowers,
Right.
which weren't there, but that
Oh,
was
yeah,
not-
yeah, yeah.
that's
But
not
that don't get that
it.
high.
Yeah.
See,
Correct, that would just-
I don't want to discourage the wildflower growth, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, no, just any vegetation to be used as screening. Over, let's say 4 feet or 3 feet, whatever you want to come up with.
All right, maybe we say 4 feet on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That way at 6 feet, I think there are places where the viewscape could be.
You wouldn't be able to see.
So does that make sense
Yeah,
to
that does,
everybody?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Just so we're not putting off that whole 1 year until they farm. I do remember them saying that they weren't going to actively start farming until the horses, they
Right,
do.
they're going to start doing some stuff. They planned on Plan A or Plan B for the
Yeah,
first.
and there's one
first-
horse
And
remaining.
look,
One horse left.
I'm willing to give time.
Right.
Well, the fencing's already up.
I mean, a lot of it is.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, that's,
And preparing the soil is farming. So getting the soil
Yeah.
ready to plant is part of the farming operation.
Right.
so again, I don't know what the wording would be for that, but certainly I would like to, Stephen, you seem to have a little bit of ag magic in you. To find the wording for that where that the fence goes with the farm, so to speak, I guess, or with the farming. And I understand that they're not going to be farming tomorrow, but that they're, whatever, that it's happening.
Yeah, no, I'll come up with something.
Okay. All right, just- Does anybody think that there's anything else that we need to address on this?
Remember how you were talking about like public access to the farm?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get
That-
any of that.
We can't put any of
I
that in
don't
there. It's
see
not
that.
our
No.
purview, right?
No.
No.
Okay, just curious.
What was sold was the development rights, and there's no right that was sold that allows public access.
Even though they did say that the farm wasn't going to be entirely private, like that there would be access to the goods of the farm in the
goods-
presentation.
Yeah, to the goods of the farm. I don't think that meant anything about access
Yeah,
to the actual farm. They could have a stand, they seem to be ready to work with Sylvester Manor and sell products there and whatever works somehow with them.
okay.
But I don't see any way that we can do anything like that with.
Okay.
I mean, Stephen, there's nothing like that, right?
No, in order to have a condition, it needs to have a nexus to the harm being ameliorated.
Yeah.
So the extra couple of feet wouldn't open the door for public access, because
Yeah, okay.
The only other question I had is, and I know it doesn't fall into our purview as far as controlling what is grown, but what type of pesticides they would use on any type of crops that they grow. And I don't know whether that falls under the town or,
I wonder if the historic soil is some stipulation with that designation?
Stephen, do you know if there's any, I mean, the town can't regulate
Control that.
pesticides, is that correct?
correct. We're not allowed to regulate pesticides.
just because of the neighboring on Mananic and Midway Road, it abuts a lot of private
And
residential
Bowditch.
homes and Bowditch, yeah.
Yeah, the state is supreme on that. We can't encumber that.
Okay, good question.
And when you have organic, you have to use certain pesticides and fertilizers.
Right, I didn't
I didn't
don't
hear the
recall, I
O
didn't,
word.
I didn't hear organic at all.
No, I know. They said for, cattle and,
An orchard,
Yeah.
I didn't hear the word organic at all.
no.
But with this.
But if they're gonna sow any kind of crops to Sylvester Manor, they're gonna have to be organic.
Right, 'cause Sylvester Manor goes with that designation.
So there would be no town, Shelter town piece that can govern or say what they're allowed to use there? Because we're on an aquifer and anything that they put in the ground potentially will affect the drinking water of that immediate area.
Because that's a lot of acreage.
Correct, yeah, we are unable to regulate that. The state occupies the field. There's a supremacy clause, the state, dictates what farmers can put in the ground. We cannot intervene.
Yep. It's,
Because just for instance, we as a town board were discussing whether or not to have our own pesticide prohibitions, and we can't do that.
Does someone from the state actually look at this? And being that they're so far removed from this remote island, does somebody actually monitor what they are putting down?
I'm not sure. I think, that's a little bit beyond me. But I'm sure because when you purchase pesticides, you have to, I guess there's some documentation that goes with it, and there is some monitoring, but I'm not sure exactly how they do it.
I would hope that the historical, remember they said the soil was deemed historic, not just the site? I would hope that there would be something there, but I guess that's not for us to decide.
I just don't think it's within our purview.
Yeah.
I'd worry about the dump more than anything.
Yeah, but this is gonna be going on annually.
Yeah.
This
But
is
we got 5 acres in the dump buried,
Yeah,
covered,
yeah.
the old dump.
Tom, I agree. I think, there ought to be some look, but I don't think we have a pathway for a look.
They do have monitoring wells around the area.
But again,
Especially the dump.
like I spoke about earlier with public access, whether or not a fence is 6 foot or 8 feet, there's no nexus to tie it to regulating what type of pesticides are used over there. So we really can't.
Other than the fact that if we didn't approve the fence, they wouldn't be able to farm there.
Arguably, they maybe would have to put those double fences and,
If they weren't
but at
compliant
the
to
end,
some.
at the end of the day, they have a wild card. They're in a state certified ag district, and we can't unreasonably restrict an ag.
Fully
operation.
understood. I'm not saying this to deem them not
Yeah,
viable. I just am concerned about what little we have left here of drinking water, of affecting any type of drinking water for the entire island.
no, without a doubt, that's a valid concern. But that, again, we tried to act as the town board to address it, and we could not.
Are we ready to move on
Yes.
to the checklist? Yeah. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. Let's say,
No?
no, my only concern is that with this, that the deer are going to be excluded from there and whatever, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen to them, but they're not going to be as well taken care of as the horses.
The reason, no.
I would say no,
Agricultural.
it's been a farm.
Yeah, it's always been a farm.
And so it's that.
Will
it's-
remain,
yeah.
okay.
Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. I
It could with the alternate fencing.
I do think that, yes, they could be. There are some alternate fences, they might not work quite as well, but I do think that there's a realistic alternative. Whether requested variance is substantial, it's 25% higher than the code allows, the fence. Is that substantial?
Yes.
I would say yes. Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? I would say no, I don't know, other than the deer or the,
I think if it remains meshed, I had mesh in my notes, like the fencing itself, then it wouldn't.
Right,
the
yeah,
others.
I mean, I know, Tom, you're thinking about the.
Right, but we're
what
talking about the
process-
fence. I'm trying
Yeah,
to keep
yeah.
it two different.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say no. Okay, and then whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, I'm gonna say yes. They would like to actively farm the land and have an 8-foot fence, and also they put up the fence without getting the variance beforehand, or at least a lot of it.
Right.
All right, and then we're gonna talk about the conditions. That, Steve, we need to come up with the right verbiage for if the property is not actively farmed for a year, let's say, that the fence will have to become compliant,
Like the fence is contingent upon active farming.
something like that. And then also,
Because it depends on the crop. Sometimes it takes a year or two before it's mature enough to do what they want to do.
that's correct, Punch, and I understand that, but, you know, that can be clear. If the fields are lying fallow there for years, then it's time for the fence to go,
Right.
you know?
But you can't just say 1 year.
Okay.
Right, but they'll be turning the soil in that 1 year, so there
Yeah,
will
yeah,
be
they
some
should be.
movement there.
Yeah, they should be doing something.
Right, so I would say that if, you know, Stephen, is a
Activity.
year sufficient, or you want to say, is it 2 years?
I think, 2 years would be better, actually. But typically, when land isn't being actively farmed, you put a cover crop on, so that's technically still farming. But, I think,
So what are we going to say, Stephen, that actually makes this work?
well, the fence runs with farming, and once the farming ceases after 2 years, it has to be made compliant.
Okay, and then for the screening, no vegetative screening, blocking the viewscapes.
Well, we need the fencing material to not be solid.
Right, but we're approving it by the plan that they submitted. So-
Okay.
Right.
And the plan shows that the fence that's
Okay.
Yeah.
already up there in some areas. So, and then no vegetative screening higher than 4 feet blocking the viewscapes? Is that something about right?
Yeah.
Yes? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Anything else for this? No, all right, so I guess we'll hopefully have a resolution on this by next week for hearing. All right, ready to move on? Will you get Christina? Christina? Will you get
Lisa.
Lisa? Okay, so next up is 57 South Ferry Road, Dawson Diamond. As a quick recap here, they have a shed turned into a studio in the setback about 4 inches from the property line. They did present a letter from the Mashamick saying that they would, it's fine with them to leave it there, maybe that it's a better way to go. So I'm going to open it up that all of you can weigh in here.
I wrote that there was a note in the file that in 2002, that the shed should have been moved. That was, I believe, a year after the construction.
I think that was part of their C of O.
I think they were given notice by the building department
Yeah.
that the shed needed to be moved in 2002.
Yeah. There's no plumbing to it.
No water, no electricity.
The said that it would take, $40,000 to move it, which seemed like a pretty large number. But I understand it's in a tough spot. There'd be some trees to deal with.
Mhm.
At this point, there's no plan to expand it. There's no water running to it. It does have electricity for heat and electricity. The foundation was inspected and it was found to be in a good state, so at this point, we're not looking at any demolition or needing future repairs that would require demoing the foundation.
It's, you know, I worry, this is, I'm always worried about setting a precedent.
Yeah, this is called an as-built variance, and I feel like if there were not the issue of the proximity to Mashamek and the maybe disruption of vegetation, I think I would refuse this. Because it does set a precedent that if someone puts their shed in the wrong place, that we then, after the fact, approve it. When a person does that, either knowingly or by mistake.
Yeah, we had something like this once before with the Anderson.
No, I remember.
And the thing was that was, 6 inches to a foot into the setback, whereas this is, 4 inches from the property line. And it's, I don't know, it's just, it's a toughie.
It is a toughie.
I mean, you can look at each application on its own too. And this one does have different conditions. If somebody else does come saying in a similar situation, their property might not border Mashomek. So in that case, like Lynn said, we do have jurisdiction and there's no precedent setting because it's a completely different application because all the conditions are different.
But
I see your
Yeah.
side as well.
is it?
Yep.
What if it's next to, I don't know, another big property, Fowler's or Camp Point Pad, or,
Yeah.
it's, it's,
Or Pearlman.
yeah, it's just, everything is unique, I understand that. And the, it's gonna be hard for me to vote yes for 4 inches from the property line. When, the notice was given on February 22nd, 2002, that the shed had to be moved.
And there is reasonable space to put it in a conforming place. It is going to disrupt vegetation though.
It is, it's, that's.
Yeah.
Look, if you all want to go and grant this variance, I'm not going to fight you all on it, but it's
It's not an easy one.
It's not an easy one.
but I can't get behind it. So when everybody weigh in and just, I feel like I want to hear a little bit more. Punch or Tom, if you have something to.
Well, my view is the same as yours as far as the precedent, and I agree wholeheartedly as well with where it is and who they're next to, and that it's not as bad as being next to an active homeowner right next door. And at that, I'd walk away and say no harm, no foul. But in granting this, it would set a huge precedent.
I feel the same way.
And that's, we sit here as a board and that, this might go away now, but it will always come back in a meeting after this with,
Oh, they always use them. Yeah, they'll use this one and they'll use the,
it will be cited for as long as we sit here. But it is a tough call. And I know the cost to move it is a huge number. But I wouldn't want to put my stamp on it at the end of the day.
do we know the degree to which the vegetation would be disturbed?
There's a number of trees that I think it's 4 trees would have to be cut down.
But there was other stuff too, right? Like wetlands?
No, it's, I don't think there'd be any disruption to the wetlands.
No. Well, wetlands to the east.
It would have to be moved closer to the wetland.
James,
I know, I'm sorry.
And you can't move.
What's that, Tom?
see, so this is how it would be. This is the one plan that shows
Mhm.
if it was moved.
Mhm.
So here's where it is now.
Mhm.
Here's the property line here, and then move it in. And here's your wetlands line, so it's would be moved out of the wetlands here. This shows it.
Let's go.
Presently, and
right
so
here,
this
yeah.
is the property line right here, and this is where about moving it to.
Mhm.
You would be getting away from the wetlands for sure.
Yeah. Um, Folks, what are we thinking?
Just another point that was brought up, allowing for the variance and not moving it would allow monetarily for the applicant to install the new septic system along with their renovation they want to complete.
I think that,
Just food for
But
thought.
that's all grantable, I think, unless the income threshold is exceeded, yeah. So,
A good point, Lynn.
only because I did it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. To the tune of $30,000, so
and what did it actually cost you in the end?
nothing.
Nothing.
Just 400 a year to maintain it after 3 years. They've been paid for the 3-year maintenance on it.
All right, can we get some consensus?
I'm really torn.
Guess what?
I'll be honest with you, I'm afraid if we grant it, it's gonna come back and bite us. I can't put my stamp on it. I know it's the Nature Conservancy, no problem, but
I get it.
somebody's gonna use it against us. We've had that happen a few times with other ones, nothing like this.
I mean, can we get some weigh in from Stephen about the legality of precedent setting with this? Is there an argument that can be had for that legally?
Sure, we could ask Stephen to weigh in there.
Yeah, well, yes, anybody can make the argument for precedent, but precedent really on the legal side is really hard to compel. So in this particular case, you have a pre-existing shed 4 inches next to that's Mashomak, it's a preserved property with that owner submitting a letter. So for precedent, it would have to be in a similar neighborhood, the same neighborhood, and with almost exact circumstances. But again, you never know what a judge would say. So it could be bad precedent. But in my reading of the recent case law, I don't think unless there's another lot similarly situated, that there wouldn't be much precedential effect. But of course, people are going to use that in their applications to use that. Well, hey, wait a minute, you granted it over here. Why aren't you granting it here? And
That happens to us at every hearing in which there is a similar variance. They'll say, well, in the case of this, this, and this, you granted this. And
but
so
more
in
than,
the,
well,
in the hearing, we
likely.
can't discount that.
of course, but again, more than likely, you'll be able to distinguish it from the case in front of you at that time versus this matter.
But I've also seen, Stephen, that things like this, which I say, they add some gravitas to a future Article 78 on somebody that can, if this is approved, and then something similar or even less, let's say, less concerning in terms of the actual proximity to the property line. I think it makes for, it adds another layer for someone who wants to take the town to court when they're denied.
Without a doubt, it does, yes. But the precedent that you would be setting in that particular situation, the person would say, well, I want my 4 inches because you granted that guy 4 inches. And the judge is going to look at the facts and circumstances between both and granting both. Like they get to review the record on this particular case and, compare it to the one at bar. So they would see that more than likely it'd be substantially different between the two. But you're right, it does give fodder to an applicant in the future to bring in Article 78 stuff.
We had that one on Cartwright Road,
Yep.
and that wasn't that close to the line.
Yep.
And that there was no notice to move it. They weren't
Right.
ordered to move it and it wasn't ignored.
It's, if you all want to approve it, whatever, I'll, sort of stand aside, but it's hard for me to get behind this one.
Well, there are 2 of you who want to vote no, and I came in thinking that I was not going to support this because of all the reasons that we stated, except for the fact that there was, trees in question. How are you going to vote, Tom?
I have a hard time with passing it, I really do. And I'm equally informed though, but I know it's gonna come back to bite us. And I understand everything that Stephen says, but what happens if it's in the identical situation where it's next to a piece of farmland or it's next to a mashamic and they're 4 inches off of that, and then it's the identical thing and it's now a precedent. I have a hard time.
Yeah, the other thing was, for me, is that, the notification in 2002.
Yeah.
So you're after 9/11, I'd like to remind you.
It's,
I know that we lost everything.
you all want to think about it for another month, or you want to, let's get this off the plate here today?
It's going to help to think about. It's going to make it worse for me.
Okay. I mean, I think there's 3 of us that clearly are.
State how we feel.
It's on the fence.
Yeah.
Okay. But
I'll have it, yeah.
So, are we ready for the checklist?
Mhm.
Whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties? I would say no, because it's already there. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. And again, I'm gonna say no, because what they're looking to just keep it there, and, you know,
No, yes.
No, it would be yes.
Yes.
Because
so-
it's possible
It's-
to move it into a compliant area.
Yeah.
You are correct, Jim.
It's yes.
Okay. With the requested variance is substantial, yes.
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 Give me a measurement.
It's approximately 4 inches from the property line. Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? I'm gonna say no.
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 Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, yes.
Yes.
All right. Stephen, do we need anything else on this?
No, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
We're gonna discuss our
Oh, I'm sorry, the
Calendar.
calendar, sorry.
calendar.
We're gonna move on to discussion of our calendar. All right, so we good with the calendar as is, or there was something, Christina, you were talking about in May?
May, yes. I'll be away 21st to 28th, so technically the meeting should be 21st and 28th, but if we can push it to 14 and 21st, that would be helpful to me.
Okay.
I agree.
May, gonna move it to when?
14th and
The
21st.
14th.
21st?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it right here. I got it. I know I'm not gonna be here for the hearing on March 26th, but I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm just on I'm on a cruise, and I'll just ask.
Wants to go 14 and 21.
Okay. And then November and December are pushed forward, that's.
Right, normal,
great.
yeah, because of the holidays.
Len, do you have anything, any holiday?
I don't have the school calendar yet for next year, so I'm pretty good about being able to be here mostly. I might have to miss one, but
I know I gotta miss one, but that's,
I think our attendance compared to other committees is really good, probably.
That's good.
Do we have to vote on this?
Okay,
yes, we do.
a motion to adopt the calendar for 2025.
I'll
as
make
we
that
discussed.
motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, can I have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.